Hello, and thank you for scanning the QR code to watch this virtual poster presentation. My name is Cara Williams. I am Jodie Webster's PhD candidate from the Geocoastal Research Group at the University of Sydney. I am pleased to present this poster on Dingo Neutron computed tomography as a new high-resolution and non-destructive method for diagenetic vetting of fossil coral reef cores for geochronological and paleoclimate reconstructions. So just to provide a bit of background, the primary aragonite material in fossil coral cores can be used to provide ages in core samples and to reconstruct past sea level histories and provide information on past oceanographic conditions such as seawater chemistries and sea surface temperatures. This is important for paleoclimate studies as well as a useful indicator in predicting coral reefs' response to contemporary climatic changes. However, the problem is that aragonite is quickly replaced by calcitic material during burial through diagenetic processes such as neomorphism, cementation, and dissolution. Whilst calcite can be used for dating sediments, it is less accurate and provides only rough estimates. Therefore, coral reef scientists are in hot pursuit of technologies that can efficiently and accurately identify sections of preserved aragonite material in fossil coral reef cores. And this study proposes that neutron computed tomography is a useful technology that can achieve this. So moving on to the materials and methods. We conducted neutron tomographic scans of 3 core samples, the locations of which you can see here in Figure 1, at the ANSTO Dingo Nuclear Reactor Facility in Lucas Heights, Australia. And the way this works is neutron tomography uses reflected or transmitted waves from a nuclear reactor source to penetrate 3D objects from different angles. And neutrons are strongly reflected by hydrogen-bearing or water-bearing materials and show up as bright white to lighter grey colours on the neutron scan images that are the output. And so based on this principle, it was proposed that aragonite, which contains more water than calcite, should be easier to see using neutron scans. And Figure 2 here shows the Dingo Neutron instrument setup with core samples mounted in an aluminium tube here. And the opal nuclear reactor at the bottom right here emits neutrons from a decaying uranium-235 source, and that passes through this flight tube through the samples and onto this detector box, which is then converted into a scan or an image. So moving on to the results. A Holocene Porites fossil coral was used as a proof of concept sample in this study because it had known and clearly defined sections of aragonite and calcite that you can see here. And these had also been previously screened using other diagenetic screening methods. Those previous methods used were X-ray CT, hyperspectral imaging, which you see in this B image, Figure 3B, X-ray powder diffraction, and strontium calcium isotopes, and thin section analysis. So Figure 5 goes into the details of those other methods, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the neutron scans from this study that you see in Figure 3D, this image here, successfully imaged the same aragonite and calcite regions identified in these previous studies, but with the added benefit of being able to display the 2 mineral phases, calcite and aragonite, in high resolution 3D without the need to destroy or alter the original sample. So 2 more complex diagenetically altered coral reef samples were also used and measured in the same manner to validate the findings in this study. And those 2 samples also had prior geochronological and geochemical screening that corroborates with the locations of calcite and aragonite and across multiple scales, which was crucial to validate the findings in this study. And across all these samples, we consistently found that neutrons were able to locate the sections of aragonite in a 3D sense throughout the core. And based on these findings, we extracted the neutron voxel values, which are the pixel values in 3D, which represents the neutron attenuation and the hydrogen content. And so we have created a preliminary grayscale interpretation that you see here in figure 4. And this represents aragonite and calcite values, as well as the porosity, or the background of the core sample that has been either dissolved, or the banding between the empty space between the seasonal growth banding. And this broad range can easily be refined with ongoing experiments, which we have every intention of doing. So moving on to the discussion, here in figure 5, we can see that same proof of concept porosity sample with the thin section images here on the right, along with the isotope values from a previous study that sampled from the same core, and the neutron scan voxel values in the far right here, selected for the grayscale that corresponds to these sample locations highlighted by this black rectangle. And it's found across this studies and the previous 2 studies that there is a gradual transition zone of calcite mineral replacement across this black rectangle. The NT scan also shows seasonal growth banding and the 3D structure. So each of these techniques offers their merits and limitations pertaining to the scale of resolution, the scientific question at hand, and the resources available to the researchers. And previous studies show that these methods often produce spurious or low resolution images, or indeed high resolution images that are not representative of the complete diagenetic history through time and depth. It also results in unnecessary destruction of core samples or invalid imaging techniques that don't unveil the full 3D character of the core. And most of these methods are also quite costly and time-consuming with regards to sample preparation. So we conclude that for the first time, thermal neutron tomographic scans provide full, high-quality 3D resolution of structure and calcium carbonate mineral phase contrast in fossil coral reefs that is used to identify sections of aragonite for use in geochronology and paleoclimate interpretations. And specifically, this study has demonstrated that NT scans are successful in distinguishing between aragonite and calcite in fossil coral reef core. And secondly, the high sensitivity of the scans to hydrogen, which in this study is a proxy for well-preserved aragonite, therefore makes it an ideal tool for vetting fossil coral for diagenetic alteration. And finally, neutron scanning also successfully imaged high-resolution sub-millimeter scale core features such as seasonal growth banding and 3D coral skeleton structure. The 3D imaging capabilities importantly also show the distribution of calcite alteration throughout the core sample. So thank you for your time listening to this virtual poster presentation, and for any further questions, please feel free to email using the address in the title section. Thank you.